Hi, and welcome back to the show. Today I feel very fortunate to sit not only with one of my big idols, but an idol for a whole generation, Chris Potter. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you.
So born in Chicago, 1971, but raised in South Carolina.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your early childhood and also your first memories of music?
Yeah, we moved to South Carolina when I was maybe 3 or 4 years old, so I don't have really many memories of Chicago. As far as music, what I remember was that I would always listen to my parents' record collection, and they didn't have a huge collection, but they had a very wide-ranging collection. It was they had Bach and Stravinsky and Joni Mitchell and the Beatles and Isaac Hayes and Balinese gamelan music, all kinds of things. And also some jazz records. And especially as a little kid, I had no idea what any of them were, but I was always very attracted to music, so I would just look for a cool record cover and put that on. And, I didn't know what genre, where it came from, anything. I would just kind of respond to it. So, probably by the time I was 8 or 9, I was really into the Beatles. I was really into the blues. And I had a little electric guitar and a keyboard, and I think I put on there's a Dave Brubeck record, Time Out, that has the cool cover. Yeah, it's the one that has Take 5 on it. And that was the first time that I'd heard the saxophone played in any kind of a gentle, beautiful way like that, like just hearing Paul Desmond's sound. And I thought, well, it might be kind of cool to learn to play the saxophone. And this was maybe when I was 10, and my folks finally saw that I was serious, that I didn't give up. After a few months, I was still talking about it. So they got me a saxophone, and I studied with someone who I had seen performing around the area. Very, very good teacher. Bryson Borgstedt was his name. And I was off and running. Then I was really into it, and I was discovering, Johnny Hodges and Paul Gonsalves and Harry Carney, all the guys in the Duke Ellington Band, and Charlie Parker and Sonny Rollins, John Coltrane, et cetera, et cetera. So, so I got into it really young,
So already 12 years old, you got an award, IAGE award.
Right. I think correct? It was I think it was the NAJE at that time, because it wasn't the International Association of Jazz.
Right.
At that time, it was only the National Association of Jazz.
And then Carolyn Carrington was that year, Harry Connick Jr.
Exactly, yeah. I met those guys all when I was 12, and they're a bit older, like maybe 5 or 6 years old.
So around 13, you already started to play professionally, kind of have your first gigs and playing around town.
Yeah.
How was that time, being so young, like a child prodigy coming up?
It was great. I mean, it was a bit odd. I was the only kid my age that I knew who even listened to jazz, much less tried to play it. So I was really, on my own. I was always just hanging out with an older generation of musicians and doing gigs. It wasn't until I moved to New York when I was 18. That's when I finally met people my age that were playing music. And that was. It's very exciting.
At that time, you were playing with Red Rodney. Was that sort of the first heavyweight, sort of that took you under the wings?
Yeah, that was really the first, the first real gig. My first kind of taste of what it's like to be a touring jazz musician.
So then you also studied there at the New School and then Manhattan School of Music.
Right.
How did those years shape you as a musician?
All kinds of things. I mean, of course, going to school, there were I was learning things there, but I would say I was learning at least as much, or not more, just hanging out and playing. Getting involved with whatever music I could. I kind of made it a policy just to say yes to anything. I mean, for one thing, I wanted to pay the rent, so I was playing, weddings and bar mitzvahs and restaurant gigs and whatever. I was doing a lot of sessions at people's houses. People would just get together during the day and play, It was exciting. I mean, to be in New York where there's so much energy about people wanting to play, people wanting to get together. listening to music that I had never heard, finding out about records that I didn't know about, from the people that I was working with, the people that I was playing with.
Right.
How was it all helped me to grow
doing that? Because I know they come more from academic side.
Right.
So were they supportive to make you, have this life as a jazz musician and?
Yeah, they were always very supportive. I was very lucky that way. They never said they could see. I don't remember ever deciding to be a musician. It was just by the time I finished high school, it was kind of obvious to everyone that that's what I did.
Right.
And if I had said I wanted to do something else, be an engineer or something like that, then they would have been shocked.
So when did you realize, sort of, as you said, you never really thought of being a fireman or a child psychiatrist?
Yeah,
or
right,
like that.
right.
So
right.
when did you realize you woke up and said, "This is what I'm going to do. I might just be a musician"?
That's what I'm saying. I still haven't had that moment.
Right, still waiting for it.
Yeah, well, life just kind of happens and happens and happens. But I can't imagine doing anything else.
I've been so fortunate to hear a lot of your CDs and see you perform live during the years. And the first time I saw you was close to 20 years ago at Fasching with Paul Motion and Mark Johnson. Yeah. And ever since, I've been, trying to get everything I can with you. With Paul Motion, Electric Bebop Band. I've been seeing you with Pat Metheny and also with your other group. All those people that you played with, Dave Holland's group, Dave Douglas. I know that all of them are important for you, but was there some of them that shaped you a little bit extra or meant a little extra for you?
I suppose so. I think all the experiences that I've had have definitely shaped me. Definitely working with Motion at an early age, and I had a long association with him, because we would do gigs, almost up until the end of his life. So over the space of almost 20 years, we used to play together, and just his aesthetic, his kind of refusal to play in any kind of way that could be analyzed. He was just going on instinct, you know.
And also then, his history playing with Bill Evans. And
of course. There's a lot of depth there. And then someone like Dave Holland, much more methodical in a certain way, and the music is much more about, working on these odd meters and finding different ways to get through them, and that's also been a very long and fruitful association that's still going on. So,
with Dave Holland, I think it was 97, you recorded Unspoken.
That was the first time I played with him,
Jack DeChanette.
And Schofield,
and Schofield.
Yeah.
And was that sort of the in a way, the first musical meeting where you can present your own music? I know that you had encounters before when you played with Red Rooney.
Yeah.
But was that sort of the first?
You mean with Dave? You mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the first time that that was the first time that I had played with Dave in any situation. I had worked with Jack and in maybe one situation, and I'd worked with Sco in some situation, but I really had just called Dave out of the blue. And of course I met him before he knew who I was, but yeah, that was I think, I was in my mid-20s and I just called my heroes to play, and they said yes, and then I showed up at the studio and there they all were, and I was scared to death, but once we started making music together, it was like just the same as playing with my friends, they were just working on it, trying to figure out how this piece should go, how to approach it, it was really fun. It was great.
What motivates you? You've been playing your whole life, and what motivates you to wake up and still pick up that saxophone, keep on writing new music, listen to music? What is it that keep you going?
There's just more. There are more stories to be told, and maybe some old stories that I can tell better. It's what's really amazing. The way music is, it really is never ending. It's not like you get to a level and then okay, that's it. You know, especially with this music, music that's improvised. There's always a new situation. There's always something you're listening to that influences how you approach something. You know, getting the chance to play with musicians you never worked with before. All these things can bring out new sides in your playing. Maybe things you didn't even know that you had, you know. So it's always a search for these things, and I see this, you know, in the heroes of mine that I've had the chance to work with that are older than me. You know, they're still on this path too. It's nice to see. It just does not end. It does not end.
So the same as you got advice when you were young and as a new kid on the block and the youngest in the group,
Right.
and you got father advices. Can you give some father advice to the musicians out there? Mm-hmm. It's one of the toughest fields to be in, to become a jazz musician and make a living. You don't just go to New York and say, I'm going to get rich and famous and make CDs.
Right.
What advice can be either for practicing or sort of professionally? What is important in this business to, I don't know if you want to call it make it, but to be able to work and to work with good people?
Yeah.
What is required of you?
Well, I mean, you know, something that's really good about the jazz scene, more than maybe the pop scene or something like that, is, you know, it really is about the music. I mean, if there's someone out there who can really, really, really play, they'll do all right. They'll find a way. You know, it's only getting harder. I think the atmosphere for, you know, work, and I mean, you know, the recording industry is basically gone, and you know, there are many reasons for despair, but people are still into music, I find, and they want to hear something good, something that gets them. So there is always room for someone who has a vision and can follow through on it. That's really the main thing, is the you know, the following through, like just not giving up and not, you know, doubting that you're on a, you know, if you have to do it, then you have to do it. I mean, I do feel like being a musician is like that. Like, if you don't have to do it, then maybe it's not the job for you.
Right.
But if you're the kind of person that you have, for whatever reason, it's in you and you just have to do it, then you'll find a way.
Well, Woody Allen said 99% is just to show up.
It's showing up, yeah, right.
So maybe that's not completely true. You're still young. Where is Chris Potter 10 years from now?
10 years? I don't know. I'm trying to make it through today. I don't know. I mean, of course, I have all kinds of ideas, you know, things I imagine writing, you know, ensembles I imagine writing for, different kind of projects that I would like to do. But you know, in the day-to-day scheme of things, it really seems like one thing does lead to another, leads to another, leads to another. I mean, at the moment, I'm focusing on this acoustic group. You know, we're going to make a new recording for ECM. Should be out in about a year, I guess. Hopefully a little less. You know, and I'm trying to investigate how can we use, you know, how is it possible to use piano, acoustic bass, drums, saxophone, like the most common acoustic jazz quartet configuration, and do it our own way, you know, and have the music have an identity that's not the same as, you know, all the music that has come before it, but obviously influenced by it. So, you know, that's the thing at the moment. At some point, I'd love to write more for the Underground Orchestra, you know, the ensemble that was on the Imaginary Cities CD.
So Greg Taborn, Nate Smith, and Adam Rogers still in the lineup?
Yeah. Well, on that recording, it's, you know, it's them, but also with Scott Colley playing upright, Fema Efron playing electric bass, Steve Nelson playing vibes and marimba, and a string quartet.
Oh, okay.
So it's 11 pieces, and it's you know, it's a much different thing. It's large ensemble music, so it's arranged and composed, and that's another side of what I enjoy doing. I mean, I guess at this point, I've written a couple albums worth of big band music, you know, that I perform from time to time. So there's kind of the large ensemble thing. There's the acoustic thing. I would definitely be interested in getting back into maybe a more funk-oriented thing, like the basic underground quartet at some point. And just also looking forward to various collaborations. I mean, there's a band that we're going out on the road in the fall. It's with Dave Holland and Lionel Lueke, who I really enjoy playing with. Very unique musician, able to bring the African tradition,
Absolutely.
but also with a very modern, harmonic and just his whole aesthetic. I think all the years playing with Herbie, he's really gotten a lot. It's pretty special. Him and Eric Harland, who I've played with a long time. Obviously one of the best drummers in jazz. I think we're headed out in the fall, so I'm looking forward to that collaboration. I think after that, there's going to be some kind of touring that also involves Dave Holland, but with Zakir Hussain. He's putting together a project, and I'm very excited about that too, because I mean that's another angle of music. I remember in my early 20s checking out Zakir with various Indian musicians, kind of on the classical.
And Eric Holland
thing.
plays with Zakir as well.
Yeah, exactly. So all these collaborations keep it
testing
fresh.
new waters.
Exactly. Yeah.
Chris Potter, it's been a huge honor to have you on the show, and we're looking
Thanks for
forward
having me.
to see you soon again.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.